So, Simcoe, how do you feel about the New Zealand community not necessarily being 100% behind you? I mean, look at this recent GP Forums poll. I mean, only 35% of people are saying that you aren't ready for the grand final. How do you feel about that?
I don't think that means that they're not behind us. I mean, I think everyone is behind us, and especially once the matches get in, you'll see a lot of support. But to be fair, I mean, they're being realistic about our chances. And like the guy asked, what's our preparation been like? Tricito, trying to be a sneaky guy. He was asking about what our preparation's been like, and I mean, and to be fair, it's for me. I mean, being the fifth WCG, it's probably our least ideal preparation we've ever had.
But I think mentally, though, you may be at a better spot than you have been at other years.
Yeah, I mean, we're realistic. I mean, or at least I'm realistic about it. Ferrell's is very optimistic about it. But we're happy we're getting the chance to go, and that New Zealand's going to have a team there. Whether it was us or someone else, it doesn't matter. It's like it's good for the community. But what we want to do is just try and help build on the attitude going forward. Really.
I think individually we're pretty ready. Everyone's playing pretty well at the moment. We've got pretty good attitude. Tuscan took us a bit by surprise, to be honest. We've got 2 games on Tuscan, so we're a bit underprepared for that, but we're hoping they will be as well, so we should be all right.
Will actually be quite interesting because, I mean, Estro, Korea are really good on Nuke, but that's our first game, and we're decent on Nuke. I mean, Nuke, as long as you play a strong side or you play a strong T-half, you can really turn things around on it. When we play Mime on Inferno, I mean, they haven't been that great on Inferno recently, and we've actually been quite solid on Inferno recently. It's probably one of our most practiced maps. But, I mean, I'll put my money where my mouth is when we actually play the map and see how we go. Not like 16-3 or nothing, but Tuscan, on the other hand, I mean, if we get into the right flow, then we could pull off those 2 important games. Because those, I mean, we don't expect to beat those top 3 countries, but we're aiming to definitely, come at least 4th in that group.
Were you guys surprised that they added Tuscan in? I mean, it seemed quite unusual.
Not really. I would have kind of expected Mill or something, because New Zealand doesn't really play Tuscan, but you've seen this year it's been played a lot internationally.
Yeah, it seems someone's gone and lobbying for the map to be put in all the different tournaments or something. I'm not sure. It's just popped up in all of them.
I was just going to say that most big tournaments around the world have picked up Tuscan now.
Okay. So, Simcoe, do you have any plans for retirement? I mean, 5... no, I mean, the reason I'm asking this is if you look at all the rest of the PX players over years, most of them retired now. I mean, now you're equaling Josh Slaughter for the number of times at a grand final. So, I mean, is this your last time?
Yeah, well, shit. I was 16 when I joined Parallax, and it was a long time ago. It was 2002. So, going from being the juniors, like as 16 years old, to being the senior at 22 years old, I'm probably getting to that point. I don't think my reactions are quite as sharp as they used to be. Scientifically, they're not meant to degrade or anything, but I don't know. It's just the reality of going from being a student and not having so much responsibilities to being someone who's working full time, at least 40 hours a week. I've been in a relationship for a year. I'm just lucky I've got a girlfriend that understands gaming's a big part of my life.
Yeah.
And
well, you haven't really answered the question. Are you going to retire in the next 2 years?
I've considered it, but I'd rather see that the Counter-Strike 1.6 community grew before I left it or abandoned it.
So there's at least another grand final in you?
Yeah, there's at least another year, I think.
Okay. So, in sense of this has been widely discussed, and I'm going to open this to everybody, we've sort of publicly said that we're not going to run a WCG qualifier next year. I mean, what do you guys think about that, and what effect do you think it's going to have on your community?
Probably kill it even further.
What was that?
It'll probably kill it even further.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think you need to attack it from the ground up. I can understand the reasons that you might say that. It's kind of like it's conflicting when you have a major LAN event and a qualifier in the same thing, because it draws away from the qualifiers numbers. Especially like we were saying before, you had 1.6 teams that said, look, we'd rather play more games. We have more of a chance if we play Source. it's just going to be a bit more casual. They knew they didn't have a chance necessarily to go to Germany, so that's why they chose to play Source. So it's about the way you set it up and about how the organisers run it, but it's also about the fact that there's not enough events nationally anyway, and there needs to be more LAN events. And I mean that's everyone's fault. I mean, we've always said we want to be more proactive with getting mid-city tournaments or whatever, but that's really what needs to happen. There has to be a lot more smaller local events. Yeah. And because there's a large player base out there. There's a large player base out there. It's not the old school players that there once was, like WH and the Soldier guys in the South Island, but it's these newer, younger guys that aren't necessarily in teams, maybe just play pugs or pubs, and they just need to be directed into a way that gives them an opportunity to compete properly.
Okay. Now, definitely a lot of players that aren't so interested in WCG, maybe because they're not eligible or because it's the first prizes. There's not as many top echelon teams as kind of mid-competitive teams and stuff like that. They need a bit more incentive to put a team together and go to a LAN event. Yeah.
Any comments on it at all?
Oh, that's been pretty much covered by everyone.
Okay. I suppose I have a little bit of opinion. I think part of the problem is running more events is it needs money. New Zealand's small. I mean, people's expectations, I think, are a little bit too high. I mean, yes, we could easily get more events, but I think we can't have lots of large-scale events in New Zealand. We just don't have the player base or the money to support it. So, I mean, it's a big problem. We only have a small population. We're never going to be as large as what Australia can have.
You're not going to get as much sponsorship for smaller events as you will for one big grand event.
And that's the other problem. I mean, that's the reason why we run large, big events. We can get money to send you guys overseas. It's big money to send teams. Yeah. It's not easy.
And really, Auckland's the only place with a big enough sort of population density to make it worthwhile having small tournaments, such as a mid-city runs the odd pub tournament and stuff. But you can't have guys from South Island coming up just to small tournaments every so often and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, just you'd run an event in Wellington and you just wouldn't get the numbers. Okay.
Just like to add something there. As you said before, like Australia's a much bigger country. They got a lot more people, but our top team still competes with their top teams. So like, I just think that the community should still like be supported.
Okay. So maybe more Tasman events then or something.
Yeah.
But the Australians will start to get pretty pissed if we start winning all their tournaments.
Well, they're not putting in enough work then.
I mean, you know what I mean, though, in sense of New Zealanders going over and winning Australian tournaments. At some stage, they will start to get annoyed with it.
It's funny. I mean, the community, like everyone, you see the size of the community has gone down. It's degraded. But last year, for the first time ever, you had more than one New Zealand team go to an event. Actually, no, it wasn't the first time. I think back in 2002, you had like NZP and another team go, maybe. But I mean, you had Noxious, you had Halcyon, and you had Parallax, and 3 teams to go to AINC, especially to see Noxious, who weren't necessarily like the top 2 competitors. It was cool to see that, and it kind of goes against the whole idea that the community is downgrading. It's just you just got to kind of support it a bit more. Like everyone has to do their part, I think. There's got to be a lot of cooperation, but how it's done is debatable. So.
Okay.